This podcast could potentially have adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly the possibility of sexual content. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the literary briefs edition where everyone is only in their underwear. Just kidding. I say that a lot, but we actually have an underwear sponsor in mind. So I've decided, if that happens, I'm just going to wear their underwear on the podcast, and that's how it's going to be.
There you go.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, please. So I am your host, Erica Lance, and my amazing co-host today is Bo Lake. And our guest today is the amazing Rich Davis.
Hey guys.
Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking. I'm actually almost near the end of my second peach mango Angry Orchard hard fruit cider, and I have a little bit of my elderflower lemonade. They're hand-picked flowers, the elderflowers. It's super fancy. That would explain the cost of this damn thing. But yes, okay. So that's happening. Oh, what are you drinking?
I have now moved on to water because I am getting more basic by the minute.
That's okay. You're
Is
allowed
it pumpkin spice water?
If only. It isn't a fancy big jug.
We should blurt out so we can't see it. We'll just have to believe you that it's fancy.
Big. It's big. It's big and fancy. We should get them to sponsor too.
I like it. Rich.
So I am about 3/4 of the way through this absinthe with real wormwood, mixing it up with a little ginger ale, grenadine, and lime. So it's pretty good, and I'm drinking it in my very fancy Witcher, whatever they call these water bottle things.
I like it. Are you disappointed in the Witcher change?
I'm not happy that Henry Cavill's leaving. I'm very disappointed to learn why Henry Cavill's leaving. Apparently there's some disagreements with the creative team. And The Witcher is actually a project that's very, very important to me. I love it. I've been reading the books for years, obviously playing the video games. And so Henry Cavill, he was one of us. He was a Witcher nerd. He's like Ian McKellen on Lord of the Rings. He's like a walking encyclopedia of Witcher knowledge. And so to hear stories that the creative team has an active almost hatred for the source material is very disappointing. And so it makes me admire Henry Cavill for leaving that rather than being a part of them ruining a project that he cares a lot about. But it's very disappointing that he left and not the creative team. Because anytime you're adapting a project from one medium to another, there are going to be changes. That's natural, but you should still have a bit of faith to or faithfulness to the source material. And I faced that a lot, in adapting Bram Stoker's Dracula into my first comic, Cult of Dracula. Because there are certain expectations that fans of Dracula have, but I wanted to kind of, spin those and package them in ways you may not expect. But I still tried, every way I possibly could to stay true to what Stoker intended. So it's a little disappointing that the creative team doesn't have that same regard for the Witcher books.
And that how many times have we seen that go down in a series?
Yeah.
Start with the source material and then they go left and you're like, okay, cool. Where are you going? Cool. We don't want to go there.
No, we don't want that. Come back.
Yeah. I didn't like that at all. Can we come back to season 3 and start again? And we'll go this way instead.
What do you mean Bram is the king?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones now for the first time, actually going back and rewatching it. And yeah, how did Bran end up on the Iron Throne? I don't That's the one I did not expect. I was convinced, and I still think this after reading the books, because the books and the show are going to have a completely different ending. I think Sansa is going to be on the Iron Throne in the
Ooh,
books.
that would be good.
She is so amazing. I love that character and her journey from the first page to the last page. It's brilliant. I mean, this girl is the toughest woman in all of Westeros to survive what she survived consistently and still navigate her way out of it to, come out in a very powerful position. I mean, this girl has to be queen. The realm needs her.
Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting. I read all the books that were out at the time before the series started. There was a lot I was actually really happy with in the casting and the characters. And then there was a point I was like, what? And then don't get me started about everything that happened in season 7 and 8. And I was like, I'll tell you, this is my petty little victory. I was so happy the guys that wrote that were supposed to get the Star Wars series were told to fuck off. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And they had that taken out from under them. I was like, thank you, because God knows what you would have done with whatever Star Wars series you were going to helm.
Yeah,
and House of Dragon is so good too without them. So
Oh, House of the Dragon's brilliant.
Yeah.
I've absolutely loved it. And yeah, I think Game of Thrones, it really went off the rails once they passed Martin's source material. Once they were like, oh crap, where do we go? And then I think they saw just how challenging it is to finish an epic like Song of Ice and Fire, and it is an epic. So I think maybe they saw how difficult it was, and they were like, yeah, let's move on to something else, because we don't want to tackle this. And then of course they rushed the, season 8 should have been 3 seasons. It just completely broke with this slow, deliberate pace that we've come to expect from Game of Thrones. And then now all of a sudden you're on a runaway train going downhill. And it just, I don't know, it didn't feel like the same show that we had invested 7 previous seasons in.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, to your questions, rapid fire questions. What are your favorite book of all time?
Stephen King's The Stand.
Why?
It is one because I discovered it at a very, very young age and was way too young to read it, but I forced myself to get through it because I'm the kind of person, when I start doing something, I tend to do it. But I think the Stand is probably the best example, at least the most profound example in my life, of laying out a true post-apocalyptic tale. I think it's a very real, other than, there's some, supernatural elements to it. But it's very accurate into the way I believe people would react to a global pandemic, which we just actually kind of lived through, and, saw people behaving very similarly to The Stand. So yeah, I love Stephen King's The Stand, followed very closely by Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire.
No, it's interesting. I went and listened to that again right after she passed. And I think people do not realize, because of the movies, and even because, well, the new TV series is better at it being Louis's perspective, and Lestat is a side character in that story. Like,
and in Interview, he should be. Because interview is all Louis's story. If you want to read Lestat, you read everything else.
Yes, which is, I don't know if you've watched the new Interview with the Vampire yet.
Yep, I love it.
I think they're doing a pretty good job with it. I understand why they made some of the choices that they did, but they would not have a black lead if they kept on where he was in the book.
And I think the casting of Louis, I think, was obviously the most controversial choice that they made. But when you think about it, given New Orleans culture, the Creole influence, it makes perfect sense. And I like that they updated it to the 20s instead of going back to the 1780s. And something, they kept Louis. He's still essentially a slave owner. Louis in the books, actually owned a plantation, but Louis in the TV show, he's a pimp. So he's essentially keeping these women as slaves. They're very well taken care of slaves, but they're still slaves. So they kept the theme true. I think the only casting decision that I didn't agree with is the casting of Claudia. And it's just they made her too old. The actor's fine. She needs to work on her accent quite a bit. It's very clear she's not from the South. But making her a teenager, it just takes away so much of the depth of Claudia's character, because she's a middle-aged teenager, and she clearly looks like she could pass for 18, 19, 20. So I don't really see the same issues that Claudia in the books dealt with, of being a woman, a 60-year-old woman trapped in the body of a 5-year-old girl. So I really don't like what they did with Claudia in the TV series, but otherwise I really do enjoy the show.
Yeah, I had that same conversation, ironically, with or not ironically, who knows, with a friend of mine who's a huge fan of it too, and I said, I get it. I don't love it, but the problem with Claudia is when she shifts, and she shifts fairly rapidly into being an adult and trying to go through all those things. And there are so many things with a child actor that you'd run into post, the death of Lestat, right? Like and I said, I get why they made this choice. I don't love it, but I totally get. I mean, that's why they grabbed Kristen Dunst, who was like 11 or 12.
She was 11, which I can see that. I mean, getting another, like, one of those young Disney age actors, they're already messed up anyway. So Disney's already taken care of that. But that was the age, because I know you're not gonna be able to cast a 5-year-old to play Claudia. Yeah. It's just you'll end up ruining her the way Linda Blair, that poor woman, was ruined psychologically. But I would, that's what I was expecting, an actor who's around Stranger Things season 1 age, so it was a little disappointing that they cast a 20-year-old to play that role, and who also looks 20. She doesn't look young enough to play Claudia, and that's the essence of everything that Claudia struggles with. So now, with her being an older teenager in appearance, she's just a brat, and she's not very interesting in the show.
I agree. And I also think, like you said, the things that she deals with, we're going to see, because this person's going to grow. And that's the other caveat. It'll be interesting to see how they move. Well, I mean, she dies. I guess that's going to be.
She's not going to be around long.
Yeah. I mean, she kind of has to. Anyway, there's a lot of things. Okay. What is your least favorite book of all time?
Oh, see, I'm one of these Pollyanna people that I always try to find the positives in everything that I watch or read. I will say this. Anything written by Charlene Harris. I adored the TV series True Blood. It was amazing. And so I wanted to read the books that supported it. And her writing is less than impressive to me. It reminds me a lot of these little trashy romance novels my grandmother used to read that I would find around her house when I was little. It's just that type of terrible writing. And I have a rule: I will not criticize anything until I've either read it, watched it, or listened to it. So I did force myself to get through the first 2 of her books, and yeah, they just did not impress me in the slightest.
We can high five. I had the same exact, literally, scenario. Besides the villain season, which I don't talk about on True Blood, and True Blood stopped talking about it because they pretended like it didn't happen the next season. I thought, I went to read the books, and first of all, I love that they changed some things, because if Lafayette had died, riot would have happened. Yeah. That would have been the end, right?
Yep,
unfortunately, he's cast as an actor, but if he had been killed in the first season, I would have been like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Yeah,
Loved
this
him.
show sucks.
But I noticed that from book 1 to book 2, I forget which character it was, but they changed like nationalities, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like total change of character description, and I was like,
Yeah.
did somebody edit this? Read the first book, because this is not even what the characters look like.
No, that's always jarring when they make a change like that too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, if you could be any supernatural or mythical creature, what would you be?
I would be Mystique from the X-Men, because I have always thought the ability to shapeshift into any person at any time, that's just a fascinating superpower to me. So I would love to have that power.
Very cool. Bo, do you have a question?
Favorite book to movie adaptation?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with something recent right now, because it's just fresh in my mind. And I'm gonna go with Netflix's The Sandman. I think it is a near perfect adaptation of Neil Gaiman's work, and that is not an easy thing to accomplish, because that story, it is an epic. It spans so much and deals with so many unique themes and topics and characters. I just absolutely adore the way Netflix brought that to life. So right now, that's probably my favorite book to screen adaptation.
Now the
Least
reverse.
favorite.
Gosh, you're killing me with the Pollyanna stuff here. Again, I'm gonna go with something recent, and I really do hate to say this, because I wanted to enjoy it more. But Amazon's The Rings of Power was very disappointing in the first season, and only because it was so inconsistent, and it felt sometimes like they were going for style completely over substance. And it was beautiful. It's beautifully shot, and I think there's enough in there that's going to keep me interested for season 2. But the pacing and the way some of the plots fizzled out, and then the Deus Ex Machina that they repeatedly use just to because they have to, was very disappointing. So yeah, I'd say Rings of Power is my least favorite right now.
I've heard so many fans say it was like a roller coaster ride, that you didn't get off of it and go, I enjoyed any part of it.
Yeah. There were very few things that I really enjoyed. I mean, it's just one of those, like, I wanted it to be epic. I wanted it to be everything I loved about Lord of the Rings. And I'm one of the nerds who's actually read the Silmarillion and all the unfinished tales. So, I knew the characters that they were talking about and the situations. And, I don't know, it was just disappointing. I don't hate it, but it just disappointed me because I wanted so much more from it.
No, that makes sense. Okay, what is your favorite weird food combination?
So I will drink milk with anything. Milk is the perfect drink no matter what you're eating. It always tastes amazing. So my weirdest food combination would be anything and milk.
Okay.
Like pizza and milk, for example. Like, I love the taste of milk with pizza. Try it. It's fantastic. The saltiness of the dough and the cheese, it perfect with the richness of the milk. It's amazing.
My favorite is cold milk and Doritos. I will eat Doritos with cold milk.
Sounds great.
But I also will put sour cream on pizza, which drives people nuts, because I will put sour cream on almost anything, because
sour cream's amazing. Yeah, I've never tried it on pizza, but I would.
Now milk, sour cream, pizza, done and done.
I'm an adventurous eater. I'll try anything twice.
So what is something on your anti-bucket list? Like something you did and you're like, I will never do that again.
Oh wow. Getting into the embarrassing stories, I guess. So all right, so I've never been a person who partakes in illegal drugs. Okay, never even did pot. And so until I was older and found out that my doctor actually told me that that there's something in marijuana that helps with your digestive tract and helps with Crohn's disease, which I have. So I wanted to try edibles because I don't smoke anything. And my friend Whitney, she made me a thing of brownies, and it was a tray of brownies. And she said, you know, she brought them over and she didn't cut them up for me. And so I sliced them like they were brownies, like, you know, big brownie type thing. And she didn't tell me how much I was supposed to eat. So everything that happened about an hour after I ate that brownie is one of those anti-bucket list things I never want to do again.
Maybe a smidge too much. A smidge.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't a smidge. It was like that much too much.
No, I know. I was trying to be nice, but yeah. Yeah. No,
So yeah, I definitely would not repeat that again. So although some of the experiences from that did make it into some of my books, so you know, so it wasn't completely wasted.
I like it. What about something you do as an author that your editor is like, what the hell, stop doing this?
I do an obscene amount of research on every single thing I write about. So, and 99% of what I research never actually makes it into the book in an identifiable way. So it does drive my editor a little bit crazy that I'll spend 2 or 3 days researching, you know, exactly what the the cooling tower at the Oak Ridge nuclear facility looked like in, you know, on this day in 1965. Or there was another time I was researching, there's one panel, there's an offhanded reference to they're watching the Super Bowl on TV. And so I'd already established what time it was. So I actually went and did a day of research to find out what image would have been on the screen at this time if someone were watching the Super Bowl on that day. So yeah, my editor is like, look, I love the research. I love that you understand the world you're writing in, but you can dial it back a little bit.
Ease down. You're grinding metal. You're grinding metal. What about something for you that throws you out of a story when you're reading it? Like, what is something that will instantly make you want to stop reading?
When the characters don't behave as they feel like they should. And we were talking Game of Thrones earlier. George R.R. Martin is guilty of this a lot in my experience reading him. He's more of an architect. He plans out his stories, you know, beat by beat, page by page. He knows exactly where he's going. And that's great because his plots almost always pay off. But
you know, he's a pantser.
Really?
100% for George R. So he's really good friends with Melinda Snodgrass. I had a long conversation. He's 1,000% a pantser. I thought he plotted because I was like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, he pantses all of his stories.
Okay, well, he is probably
maybe that's why the next book is taking so long.
Oh, I'm sure he's like, oh crap, what do I do now? And you know what? If knowing that, I respect it a little bit more, you know, because hey, I've been there. Like, characters, talk to me, please. I don't know what you want from me.
Well, I also think, I mean, I would not want to be in his situation because what the crap do you do now? Like, you know, I mean, that may not be it, but the fact is like, where do you go? How do you not create an outrage somehow?
Well, I mean, he's got a very clear blueprint of how fans do not want to see the book end. So
I know that's not how it went.
And I'll guarantee you, you know, if he's smart, none of those things in season 8 will make it into his book. And, you know, season 8 will just be the Elseworlds fan fiction that we just don't pay attention to anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree 10,000% on that. Okay, Bo, I will let you ask the final question of the Literary Briefs episode.
Okay. Is there a quote from a book or poem that sticks with you? That's not your quote.
That's not, oh man, but I've got so many quotable lines in my books. You know, only because I use it all the time. It's one word, always. And you know, you say one word, everybody immediately knows where it came from. And you know, that was just such a I don't know, just such a powerfully impactful end to Snape's arc. I mean, it's such a brilliantly written character. So yeah, always.
It's like a knife in the chest.
Oh, I know. It's like almost like Joss Whedon wrote that.
Yes. I wish he did not get as much trouble as he's that particular gentleman.
It's very disappointing, you know, and that's one of those things. It's so hard sometimes to separate the art from the artist, and you know, but his work had such a profound impact on me. It touched my life in so many ways at the exact right moment. I can't ignore that, but I don't have to approve of his behavior, and it can be very disappointing.
I agree 100%. I think the thing for me was that Buffy, especially as a girl, a female, or somebody who identifies as a female, was so huge because we didn't see a lot of heroines. I mean, I love Ripley. Aliens is my favorite movie of all time, and Ripley has been one of my heroes because it was one of the first movies where a female character was not the damsel in distress necessarily, you know.
She was a badass.
She was a badass. Princess Leia, badass. I saw Star Wars when I was 3 years old at the Chinese Man Theater opening night before anybody understood what the fuck it was.
Nice.
And but Buffy, I love that because it did have the strong female characters throughout the entire thing. And that entire show would have been very different if there was a cell phone involved. That's all I'm going to say. Gone back to watch that show at all. Very different show if you imagine they had cell phones, because they spent most of the show going to look for each other in different places.
Yeah, I know.
So very different. Okay, shameless self-promotion time. Rich, tell people how to find you and your work.
Yeah, so it's super easy. I am Cult of Dracula Comic on everything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. This has been so much
thanks for having me. Yeah, had a great time.
Absolutely. Okay, and now we have our rom-com. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that. Actually, it has been filed away in the back of my mind, and it's going to be a project I toy around with, because I've got. You gave a pretty good setup for that, so I can probably play with that a little bit.
That is going to be amazing. Okay. Well, this has been Drinking with Authors, a literary briefs edition. I have been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host today has been the amazing Bo Lake, and our guest has been Rich Davis, and we will see you guys next time.